We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. Nick Barris here this morning, along now still with just Metro Vice Mayor Jim Shulman. Appreciate him staying for the show. Later, we're going to hear from Brenda Sanderson, one of the co-owners of The Stage. That establishment down on Broad was vandalized this past weekend, and we'll get into some details with her about where she goes from here. But let's take a few more phone calls as we wait until she gets hooked up, and we'll go next, I think, to is it Billy? Are you on line 3? Billy, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
I was watching Saturday night on News Channel 5, which y'all did a good job of showing what's going on. And I kept on seeing these guys with huge backpacks to their backs. Why were they allowed in there? I mean, you couldn't go to CMA Fest or Nissan or anything like that with one of those things. Why were they allowed in there? Why were they not elite and searched?
Now, I'm not sure. Well, first of all, at the rallies, and Jim, you can speak to this, you know, people were talking about some going in there with backpacks and were they sneaking things in. I was watching it too, and I may have seen a few backpacks, but this was not a place where it was structured and blocked off and there were organized searches, right? I mean, this is come one, come all, and gather down there and be part of what was going to be a rally, you know, honoring and you know, protesting the death of George Floyd.
Yeah. So the rally was just a gathering of people, like you said, and you know, it wasn't by invitation or anything. It was just come and be a part of something and express your concern about what happened in Minneapolis and then what's happening around the country. I was there. Mm-hmm. It was peaceful. It was interesting, and you know, the discussion with Councilmember Hurt. I mean, while I was there, I was also having discussions with people about, okay, how do we deal with this? What's the right thing to do? The thing that happened Saturday night was obviously, you know, where people are still trying to figure all that stuff out. But that's one of those things. Somebody used the term fluid. That's one of those things where you're not sure where it's going or what is happening, and so there is no structure to the thing. And I think one of the things, Nick, that after all this is over, it's interesting to go back and probably talk to the police and figure out, okay, how do you deal with something like that? Because you don't know where it's going. I mean, if we had known that everybody was going to be sitting in front of the courthouse square, we might have been able to block off that end, but you don't know. And then you also don't want to up the situation. You don't want to, you know, make it worse. And so I think the police did an excellent job of trying to contain it. I know people are mad and saying, well, look at the front of the courthouse. Well, nobody was hurt.
That's the biggie. I'm glad you mentioned that. Look, as bad as it was, and nothing to minimize what we saw Saturday night, compared to what we've seen in some of the other cities, Nashville, you know, nowhere near as bad as some of the other cities. And one of the flashpoints on that, in my opinion, is that there were no serious injuries here, thank goodness. The buildings can be repaired. It's awful, awful. But boy, it's been far worse in some other cities. Let's go next to, I think we've got Monty. Monty, are you there, Monty?
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I just want to share my thoughts. This whole situation to me is totally ridiculous. What happened to George Floyd was totally ridiculous. What happened in Nashville, all destruction and protest, is totally ridiculous. In my opinion, what did Nashville have to do with it? Nothing.
Well, just keep in mind, I think we all can agree that the racial tension and the stress and the incidents involving things that have made the news are not obviously isolated to Minnesota. They've happened everywhere. In fact, there's a case pending here in Davidson County where a white officer is charged with the shooting death of a black man, and that case is pending. Okay, that case is probably going to go to trial, if not later this year, early next year. So it's something, Jim, I mean, we see this across the country because this type of issue is something that permeates everywhere, one way or the other, however you feel about that.
Yeah, I think, Nick, I think what Monty's talking about, and I think a number of us are talking about, is that you know, Nashville is our home. We're not really used to this. I mean, we've seen a little bit of it. Look at what's happening in some other places. It is so much broader and bigger. Nashville has always been such a really wonderful place. It's had its problems, but I mean, I love the city. we're not used to this. We're not used to seeing people just throw things out our public buildings and, you know, take down our memorials to civil rights and just destroy them and do stuff with it. I think people are. It's sort of like they're coming out of a situation and sort of being in shock. It's like, what happened? We're a big city. I mean, Nashville's a big city, and it's, I mean, just look around. We've grown quite a bit over the last 10 years, so we're a big city, and we're going to have big city issues. But I think people are just, I think people are sad that it happened and that it happened here. But we have to address it.
We'll take a break. When we come back, Brenda Sanderson is going to join us, one of the owners of the stage downtown. She and her husband, Rubel, terrific people, and they are dealing with some vandalism to their property. We'll talk to her take, and moving forward from here in our final segment, more of your calls and comments, if we can squeeze them in as well, right after this. Stay with us on Morning Line.